Well, we made it to February, but January did not give up without a fight. Congratulations. By and large, the team did really well through the most challenging weather we've had so far. Not only was it brutally cold, we got some for real snow, and running outside was very difficult. Some of you managed to still do it. Others of you, despite hating the treadmill, use that, especially on Tuesday for the high quality workout that was next to impossible for many of you to do outside with any quality. I know there were some spots around town that were good and you were able to take advantage of those if you were reasonably close to those. But by and large, we got through that in really good shape. And looking through the training logs over this week, everything that I saw, there were very few missed workouts. Some were a little bit different. Some didn't include the quality because of opportunities to run safely and to run fast. But by and large, the team got through it really well. So hopefully we won't be challenged in that way too many more times in February. But as I mentioned to the group yesterday at Eagle Creek, I always looked at January and February as 60 days I just have to get through. And yes, I know it's normally 59 days, but I would look at that and say, just get through this period, because December wasn't all that bad because training was ramping back up. The holidays seemed to make things a little bit easier. Even if it got cold, typically it wasn't too bad. It was just not used to it yet. When we get to March, now we have those days that renew faith and renew your spirit. And then those crushing days where the snow comes back in or we have really cold days. But at least when we get to March, hope is back, and then we know it can be warm by April. Certainly if you think about some marathon days gone awry, we know that it can be pretty warm in April. So we're over halfway through now. We just have to get through February. 4 simple weeks, right? Easy to say, but sometimes if you tell yourself a lie, repeat it often enough, you'll believe it, right? So let's just get through the rest of that. But great job getting through a very serious weather challenge over the last week or so. So this week, the week of February 2nd, we start with high quality workout of a predator run. A predator run is simply a progression run that ends at all out 100% race type effort. And we want to work into that, but we don't want it to be in 30-second per mile jumps. We want it to be relatively tight. So we're thinking more 5 to 10 seconds per mile or 5 to 10 beats per minute. Obviously, if you're doing 5 miles of this, and most of you are scheduled for 3 to 5 miles, but if you're doing 5 miles of this, changing the speed from the first mile to the second mile is certainly going to be easier than the fourth mile to the fifth mile, because in the third and fourth mile, that duress is building and there's only so much faster you can go. So plan ahead for that, but plan to keep it tight and plan by thinking about, where do I think I can end this? If you think you can end it at 5:50 pace, well, you probably shouldn't start at 6:10 pace and have 5 miles to go to get to that 5:50. So plan accordingly. First mile, maybe you err on the side of a little bit too easy, but you don't want to go crazy with that. But then after that first mile, you get a better sense of what you have that day, and then we can crank it back up. So I'm not too worried about seeing that increase in that 5 to 10 seconds or whatever you decide is appropriate every mile. What I'm most interested in is you working in towards, with an honest effort, towards that last mile at 100% all-out effort. If you're on the treadmill, which I haven't looked too far ahead, but hopefully there won't be a reason that will be necessary. But if you do find yourself on the treadmill, this is a really easy one. You just press that button. And if you start at an honest pace and you increase by 1/10 of a mile an hour, maybe you start at every quarter mile and then every half mile or every so many minutes, you can get to where you're hanging on and you're going as hard as you can go by the end. The difference between the treadmill and outdoors is outdoors, your innate sense of effort and pacing, you can ease off the gas pedal a little bit and get a little bit of recovery. When you're on the treadmill, you have to press that button, that negative, to go get that recovery to back off at all. So the treadmill sometimes can be a tougher situation in this workout, which is kind of the point. And that's why we do graded exercise tests on the treadmill, because it's very controllable. Outdoors, you can back off, and sometimes you think you're going as hard as you can go, but you're not. We also have a time trial option for those of you who haven't raced but are going to be racing soon, which I think many of you are. It might be you just go into this and say, I'm going to go 3 miles or 5 miles or whatever your plan is. I'm going to time trial it and see how fast I can go for that distance. I'm not too worried about the progression part. I'm going to start hard and end as hard as I can go. So we're still accomplishing the same thing. And that's certainly a viable option for you. One of the things I always like to talk about with this workout is the uh-oh plan. And the uh-oh plan is you're planning on 5, you get to 3 and you realize, okay, this is what I have. I'm done. I can't go any faster than this. That's okay. Just try to ride it out through 5 miles. If you have to back off a little bit, it's always amazed me when I've done this workout and I get in this situation where I have 2 more miles to go and I do not have 2 more gears to change. I'll just back off for a minute or 2. And I'll do that by looking at my watch, looking at my heart rate, and say, I'm going to let that drop 5 beats. So I'm just going to relax. I'm not going to slow down. I'm not going to jog. I'm not going to do any kind of true recovery. I'm just going to relax, let the heart rate come down. And once it does, I'm going to regroup and try to go back into it. So try to do that. That is great rehearsal for racing, because in a race, you're not going to just stop, call a timeout, recover for a quarter mile recovery jog. You're going to have to back off and recover while you're still racing, and trying not to give away too much time, because that clock is always running. So think about that ahead of time, what you're going to do if you get into that situation. And we could argue that that's a better workout, because you're having to go through serious duress and manage that and still go forward. As I already mentioned, this workout is getting you ready to race. It's race readiness for both mind and body, because a lot of the workouts that we've done so far that have been difficult have had recovery jogs in it. And that's not the same as on race day. Even racing something short, 5K or even shorter, to be going as hard as you can go and have no retreat, no recovery, is completely different than doing a workout where, I just have to get to the end of this mile, the end of this quarter or whatever, and I get to do a recovery jog. So we're training the mind to race as well as the body, and finishing at 100%. Certainly will get the body ready as well. Moderate quality workout, 20-40 hills, 20 seconds up the hill, give it a good effort. Doesn't have to be an all-out sprint as hard as you can go. This is the moderate quality effort after all, but give it a good solid effort. Jog back down to your starting point. It may or may not be exactly 40 seconds, but usually it takes about 40 seconds. Most of you will probably set your watch, so you'll hear the beep at 40, and then go back up and continually repeat that. If you've looked ahead to this workout, there might have been a little bit of sticker shock looking at, I have 24 reps of this. There's not too many things we do with 24 reps. So to look at 24 reps, that may sound pretty intimidating. But if you look at the workout, 24 times 20/40 is only 24 minutes. And it's only 8 minutes of hard running. So it really is much more benign than it looks. So that's okay, hit it hard. Because these are so short, not only is the 20 seconds hard uphill short, the recovery is also short. So there's a cumulative effect to this. So in some hill workouts, we do breaks where we do maybe 10 minutes here, we go to another hill and do 10 minutes. For this one, if you can, do it continually. And you'll get a little bit better benefit, because that short recovery will have an cumulative training effect. Okay, muscular tension, aerobic pressure, all that kind of stuff will build throughout the workout. The long run with bonus this week is a gear workout, and we do this as a high quality workout and also as long run bonus, where we're doing a few miles at marathon pace or 80%, a few miles at half marathon pace or 85%, a few miles, 1 mile at 10K pace or 90%. When I do this workout, I prefer to do it by percentage of effort, because there's so many variables in pace, especially when we're doing this in the beginning of February, when we might not really know what those paces are. Most of us think in terms of, this is my goal pace. well, you might not be ready to run that at goal pace right now, and that's okay. I use both of those to give you some better idea of where you should be for it. So the marathon pace at 80% should probably be faster than actual marathon pace, but it should be comfortable, high-end aerobic, but comfortable, not too big a deal. But in the long run, it's definitely a change of gears. We're not running too many long runs all at 80%. So it's a solid 2 or 3 miles for most of you. Then a mile recovery, kind of normal long run pace. Don't go any slower than you need, but make sure that you're getting recovered and you can go into the next gear with some good energy. And that's 1 to 2 miles at 85% or half marathon pace. And it's during this 1 or 2 miles where this starts to feel like a real workout, and you feel like, I'm having to give some effort here, especially when you're in that long run frame of mind. Another mile easy, and then coming back for that mile at 10K. And that's the one that we're really focused on. Yes, the first 3 to 5 miles are important, but when we get down to that 10K pace, it's really nice if you can hit that one hard. And then we go into, for some of you, it'd be a cool down. If your total mileage is 10 or 12, there's not a whole lot of extra miles after this workout. So it might just be mile cool down and you're done. If you find that you have a good deal of miles, and I know some of you will be doing this as part of a 20 miler, so you might have 6 or 8 miles to go after you're done with this workout. If so, just try to resume normal long run pace. This workout is challenging, it's good quality, but it's nothing that's going to have you really dragging the rest of the long run. I would get in a good warm up. I always like to front load the warm up, but you don't want to do so much that you're too tired to run those miles at a good pace. Another thing that we're accomplishing with this one during a long run that isn't all that long, because we're dropping down for most of you, at least 4 miles in most cases, sometimes more. There's very few of you that are maintaining the same long run distance. So we're working on muscular tension. And that, if we do everything well, if you're ready mentally, if your nutrition plan is down, if you've done enough endurance long runs, your marathon is going to come down to muscular tension. Your half marathon, a big portion of it is going to be muscular tension. And how much of that can you withstand for 13 miles or 26 miles? So this is helping you do that, especially if you have several miles to go after you're done with the workout. Now the muscular tension is there. Even if you're running a little bit slower, it's there. If you run your normal pace, you're really getting good training benefit, even on a shorter long run week. Make sure that we're forecasting your endurance long runs. And this is primarily for marathoners. For half marathoners, we're not too worried about counting our 5 longest, though those are still important. That's not the biggest factor, or one of the bigger factors going into your half marathon. But for marathoners, it is. We're looking at what is the average of your 5 longest or your total of your 5 longest long runs. And in doing that, we want to make sure that we've forecasted this well. For many of you who did an endurance long run, maybe increased distance just yesterday or today, if you're doing your long run on Sunday, this coming week, it's a shorter long run with quality or with bonus. And then some of you are racing Polar Bear on the 28th. So if we're doing that, we want to make sure that we're making the most of that. And that might mean a couple of back-to-back long runs. If we're going to do long runs on consecutive weeks, we want to do it earlier rather than later, because that way maybe it's a 16 and an 18 or an 18 and a 20 instead of a couple of 20s. Though if you're already up to 20s, you can probably handle that as well. Just mentally, it's kind of nice to break those up. So there's your week. We're getting a really good race readiness, high quality workout. We're getting something shorter and faster, building some power on the 2040 hills, and then a long run with Botus. So a great week. Hopefully the weather is going to cooperate a little bit more this week.